ALIN GIRAL stood at the observation deck of the Araxian command ship, her four-fingered hands clasped behind her back. The blue and green planet turned slowly below, innocent and unaware. Earth, home to the humans, a species that was becoming a growing concern to the Araxian Confederation. "Officer Giral, your attention, please," a voice called from behind her. ALIN turned, her scaled skin catching the light. Commander Vexel approached with the stiff, formal gait typical of high-ranking Araxians. His purple eyes, a mark of the ruling class, studied her carefully. "Your mission details are finalized," he said, handing her a small data crystal. "The High Command has chosen you specifically for this task." ALIN took the crystal with a slight bow. "I am honored to serve the Confederation." "As you should be. This is perhaps the most crucial intelligence mission of our generation." Vexel moved to the viewport, gesturing toward Earth. "Humans are advancing too quickly. 50 of their years ago, they barely had atomic power. Now they have primitive space travel and digital systems approaching our early networks." "They still seem quite primitive compared to us," ALIN noted. "Do not underestimate them. Our projections show they could reach our current technology level within a century." The High Command wants detailed information on their military capabilities, social structures, and potential weaknesses. ALIN nodded. She had studied Earth for years in preparation, learning their languages and customs. "How long will I be embedded?" "1 Earth year. You will be surgically modified to appear human and placed in a mid-sized American city called Portland. Your cover identity is prepared. You will be Alice Green, a computer engineer relocating for work." ALIN touched her face, imagining it transformed to the flat, fleshy features of humans. The thought made her uncomfortable. "The modification is temporary," Vexel assured her, seeing her hesitation. "Your true form will be restored upon your return." The next 3 days passed in a blur. ALIN underwent painful biological modifications. Her tall, lean Araxian body compressed and reshaped into human form. Her teal skin was replaced with a pale pink tone. Her large eyes shrunk and changed to brown. Even her voice was altered to remove the natural harmonic quality of Araxian speech. When she first saw her reflection, ALIN barely recognized herself. The human face looking back seemed alien and wrong. But she was a professional. She would adapt. "Remember your training," Vexel told her during their final briefing. "Humans are emotional creatures. They form attachments quickly and make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. This makes them unpredictable, but also exploitable." "I understand," ALIN said, still getting used to her new voice. "Most important of all, maintain distance. Observe but do not engage beyond what is necessary for your cover. Form no attachments. The humans may seem similar to us in some ways, but they are a potential threat to be studied, not allies to be befriended." On her last night aboard the ship, ALIN reviewed her cover story one final time. Alice Green, 31 years old, single, born in Seattle but raised in Boston. A computer systems specialist with a background in network security. No living family, which would limit questions about her past. At dawn, she was shuttled to Earth's surface in a craft designed to evade human detection systems. They landed in a remote area outside the city, where an Earth vehicle waited. The Araxian pilot did not speak as he handed her the keys in a bag containing Earth currency, identification documents, and a communication device disguised as human technology. "The High Command expects regular reports," were his final words. "Do not disappoint them." ALIN watched the shuttle disappear into the clouds. She was alone now, on a strange planet, wearing a strange body. She started the vehicle, following the pre-programmed directions to her new apartment. The mission had begun. ALIN's first week on Earth was harder than she expected. The gravity felt strange, making her movements awkward. The air smelled different. Even ordinary sounds like cars, birds, and human voices overwhelmed her sensitive ears. Her apartment was small but functional. It sat on the 3rd floor of a building near the city center. She spent the first 2 days inside, practicing human movements in front of the mirror, walking without her natural Araxian grace, smiling without showing too many teeth, blinking at the right frequency. On the third day, the shower in her bathroom stopped working. Water leaked onto the floor. Ellen tried to fix it using the building's maintenance guide, but human plumbing was primitive and confusing. A knock on her door startled her. When she opened it, a tall man with graying hair stood there. "Hi there, I'm Frank Miller from apartment 3C, he said with a smile. "The super told me you were having plumbing problems." Ellen tensed. Her mission briefing hadn't prepared her for direct interaction so soon. "Yes," she said carefully. "The shower is broken." Frank held up a toolbox. "Mind if I take a look? I used to work construction before retiring." Ellen hesitated but realized refusing might seem suspicious. "That would be helpful. Thank you." As Frank worked on the shower, he asked questions about where she was from and her job. Ellen gave the prepared answers, watching him carefully for signs of suspicion. "All fixed," he announced after 20 minutes. "Just a loose connection." "What do I owe you?" Ellen asked, remembering that humans often expected payment for services. Frank laughed. "Nothing at all. That's what neighbors do." This confused Ellen. On Araxia, nobody helped others without expecting something in return. "By the way," Frank continued, "some of us are having a neighborhood barbecue this Saturday in the courtyard. You should come, meet some folks." A barbecue. The word was in her language database, but the social context unclear. "You know, grilling food outdoors, having some drinks, chatting. It'll help you get to know the community since you're new in town." Ellen's instinct was to refuse. Commander Vexel had warned about getting too close to humans, but she also needed to gather information on human social structures. "Thank you. I will attend," she said. Saturday arrived with clear skies. Ellen spent extra time practicing natural human movements and reviewing common conversation topics. She brought a bottle of wine, which her research indicated was a customary offering. The courtyard bustled with about 20 humans of various ages. The smell of cooking meat filled the air. Music played from speakers. People laughed and talked in small groups. Frank spotted her and waved her over. "Alice, glad you made it. Let me introduce you around." The next hour was overwhelming. Ellen met more humans than she could track, but two stood out. Lisa Daniels, a woman with curly hair who worked at the city library, spoke to Ellen with genuine warmth. And Paul Carter, a quiet man with kind eyes, mentioned he worked in aerospace engineering, a field directly relevant to Ellen's mission. "So what brought you to Portland, Alice?" Lisa asked as they sat at a picnic table. "Job opportunity," Ellen replied, keeping to her cover story. "Well, we're glad to have you," Lisa said, touching Ellen's arm lightly. "Portland can feel lonely at first, but it grows on you." The casual touch surprised Ellen. Araxians rarely had physical contact outside of family units. As the evening continued, Ellen observed the humans closely. They shared food freely. They helped elderly neighbors to seats. Children ran playing between adults who watched them with protective eyes. That night, in her first report to the Araxian Command, Ellen described human defense systems and technology she had observed. But she found herself hesitating when typing about the community gathering. Something about the experience felt private, worth protecting. She closed the communication device without mentioning the barbecue at all. 3 months passed quickly. Ellen settled into a routine that felt almost normal. She worked at Horizon Technologies, a small company that made parts for satellites and navigation systems. Her cover job gave her access to information about Earth's space capabilities, which she dutifully reported back to Araxia. Her human disguise no longer felt as strange. She learned to move her new body more naturally. The face in the mirror now seemed familiar. Sometimes she almost forgot she wasn't human. Today she sat in a coffee shop with Lisa, who had become a regular companion. Lisa talked excitedly about a book festival at her library, while Ellen sipped her drink. Coffee was a pleasure she hadn't expected to enjoy. Araxians didn't have anything like it. Earth to Alice, Lisa said, waving a hand. "You're a million miles away today." ALIN blinked. "Sorry, just thinking about work." "Always working. You need more fun in your life." Lisa leaned forward. "Speaking of which, Paul asked if you're coming to the concert in the park tomorrow." ALIN felt a strange flutter in her chest. She had seen Paul several times since the barbecue, both at group gatherings and once for lunch when they happened to meet downtown. His knowledge of aerospace systems was valuable for her mission, but she found herself enjoying his company for other reasons too. He talked about the stars with real wonder, something ALIN understood despite growing up with space travel. "I hadn't planned on it," ALIN said. "Oh, come on. Live music, summer night, good company." Lisa grinned. "I think he likes you, you know." ALIN felt her face grow warm. Her human body had these reactions she couldn't control. "We're just friends." "If you say so." Lisa checked her watch. "Oh, I need to get back to work, but promise you'll come tomorrow. The whole gang will be there." After Lisa left, ALIN sat alone, troubled by her thoughts. Commander Vexel had contacted her yesterday, demanding more useful intelligence. "We need vulnerabilities, not technical specifications," he had said. Her reports were too factual and not insightful, whatever that meant. The truth was, ALIN found herself reluctant to share certain observations, like how humans helped each other without orders or reward, or how they celebrated art and music that served no practical purpose. These things felt important, but not in ways her commanders would understand. The next evening, against her better judgment, ALIN went to the park concert. She found Lisa, Frank, and others on a grassy hill with blankets spread out. Paul waved her over, his smile making that strange flutter return to her chest. "You made it," he said, making space for her on his blanket. The music started as the sun set. ALIN had never heard a live orchestra before. The sound vibrated through her body, stirring emotions she couldn't name. When she glanced at Paul, she found him watching her, not the musicians. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he asked softly. She nodded, not trusting her voice. Later that week, Lisa called ALIN in tears. Her grandmother had fallen seriously ill and was in the hospital. Without thinking, ALIN left work immediately to meet her friend. The hospital waiting room filled with people as the evening went on. Frank brought food. Paul arrived with flowers. Lisa's coworkers came with cards. Neighbors offered to wash Lisa's apartment and water her plants. "I don't understand," ALIN said to Paul quietly. "Most of these people barely know her grandmother." Paul looked surprised. "That doesn't matter. Lisa needs support, so we're here." ALIN watched the humans around her, sharing their strength with someone in pain. On Araxia, showing such weakness would be shameful. Illness was a private matter, and the elderly were often left to manage alone once their usefulness ended. That night, ALIN sent her scheduled report to Araxia, but for the first time, she deliberately omitted significant observations, not because they weren't important, but because they suddenly felt too important to share. 5 months into her mission, ALIN received clearance to access more secure areas at Horizon Technologies. Her supervisor was impressed with her work and trusted her completely. If only he knew. Late one evening, ALIN stayed after others had left. She used her new access card to enter the research division, where the company kept its most valuable data. Here, she could find information about Earth's defensive systems, exactly what Commander Vexel demanded. The computer required a password. ALIN plugged in a small device hidden in her watch. Araxian technology made quick work of Earth's simple security measures. Files appeared on the screen, and she began copying them. One folder caught her eye. Project Outreach. It contained records of signals detected from deep space. Humans were listening for alien contact, unaware that aliens were already among them. ALIN almost smiled at the irony. But as she opened the files, her amusement vanished. The folder contained images of a crashed spacecraft. An Araxian spacecraft. ALIN's hands froze over the keyboard. According to official records, No Araxian had ever crashed on Earth. The High Command insisted this mission was humanity's first contact with their kind. Yet here were clear photos of Araxian technology, dated 15 Earth years ago. She dug deeper. The crash site was in a remote desert. Human military had recovered the ship in one body. The reports described the alien as humanoid but clearly non-terrestrial. There was no mention of living crew members. But ALIN knew Araxian ships never flew with solo pilots. Standard crew was minimum 5. She found military communications discussing hostilities with unknown aircraft near their space station. The report described the unknown craft firing first, damaging the station. Earth fighters had responded, shooting down one alien ship. ALIN sat back, mind racing. The timeline matched a famous incident in Araxian history, the unprovoked human aggression that had first marked humans as a potential threat. Every Araxian child learned how humans had attacked their peaceful research vessel without warning. But these files told a different story. The Araxian ship had fired first, and there was no mention of a research mission in the ship's recovered logs, only reconnaissance of military targets. Her people had lied. ALIN copied the files, then carefully erased evidence of her access. She walked home through dark streets, her thoughts in turmoil. If this was a lie, what else was false? Was her entire mission based on deception? The next day, Paul invited her to lunch. They sat at an outdoor cafe, but ALIN barely touched her food. Paul noticed her distraction. "Everything okay, Alice?" he asked. "You seem worried." ALIN looked at him, really looked at him. Paul was brilliant but gentle. His work aimed to explore space, not conquer it. Was this the dangerous creature her people feared? "Just work stress," she said finally. "Tell me more about your new project." Paul's eyes lit up. "It's incredible. We're developing shield technology that could protect spacecraft from radiation and small debris. If it works, it could make long-distance space travel much safer." "Like to Mars?" ALIN asked. "Mars, beyond the solar system eventually." Paul leaned forward, voice low with excitement. "Imagine humans reaching other stars, meeting other intelligent life. What would we learn? How would it change us?" ALIN's throat tightened. If her mission succeeded, humans might never get that chance. The Araxian fleet would ensure Earth remained isolated, or worse. "Do you think these other beings would be peaceful?" she asked carefully. Paul considered this. "I hope so. But even if they're not initially, I believe understanding can grow between different species. Fear comes from ignorance. Knowledge leads to peace." ALIN felt something shift inside her. The humans she'd met weren't the dangerous savages described in her briefings. They were curious, kind, and hopeful. And her own people had lied about first contact. That night, for the first time, ALIN sent a deliberately false report to Commander Vexel. She needed time to discover the whole truth about her mission, her people, and herself. ALIN woke suddenly in the night. Her communication device was flashing with an urgent message. She activated it with a trembling hand. Commander Vexel's face appeared, his purple eyes cold. "Officer Giral, the High Command has reached a decision. Your reports have been analyzed and a course of action determined." ALIN sat up straighter. "What decision?" "The humans possess more advanced technology than expected. The leadership believes a preemptive strike is necessary before they become a genuine threat." The words hit ALIN like a physical blow. Preemptive strike. "The fleet will launch within 60 Earth days. We will target their major military installations and defense systems first, then their largest population centers to minimize resistance." Vexel's expression showed no emotion. "Your intelligence has been invaluable in selecting targets." ALIN's mind flashed to Portland, to Lisa's apartment, to the park where Paul listened to music, to the hospital where people gathered to support a sick old woman, all potential targets because of information she had provided. "The humans show no signs of aggression," she said carefully. "Their space program is exploratory, not military." Vexel's eyes narrowed. "Your recent reports have been lacking in detail, Officer Giral, are you experiencing difficulties with your mission? No, she lied. I simply require more time to gather comprehensive intelligence. Time is a luxury we cannot afford. Continue your work. Focus on any defensive weaknesses. The attack plan is already in motion. The communication ended abruptly. ALIN sat in the dark, her human heart pounding painfully in her chest. Millions would die. Lysa, Paul, Frank, everyone she had met. The next day at work, ALIN could barely focus. Paul noticed her distress and invited her for coffee after their shift. "You've seemed troubled lately," he said as they sat in the empty break room. "I'm worried about you." ALIN looked at him, wondering what he would think if he knew what she really was, what her people planned to do. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Your shield technology, how far along is it?" Paul looked surprised by the question. "We've had some breakthroughs recently, but why the sudden interest? Could it protect against advanced weapons? Things beyond current Earth technology?" Paul studied her face. "Theoretically, yes, the principles would work against any high-energy attack, but we're years away from a working prototype." He leaned forward. "Alice, what's going on?" ALIN nearly told him everything. The words were on her tongue, but years of training held her back. Just curious. The stars can be dangerous. Later that night, ALIN stood on her apartment balcony looking at the sky. Somewhere up there, the Araxian fleet was preparing to attack. Because of her. Because of lies told by her people. Her communication device chimed. Another message from Vexel demanding more information on human defenses. She ignored it. ALIN faced an impossible choice: betray her species or become complicit in mass murder. There was no middle ground anymore. The next morning, she made her decision. When Paul mentioned a problem with his shield calculations, ALIN offered to help. Using her knowledge of Araxian weapon systems, without revealing their source, she subtly guided him toward solutions that would strengthen the design against exactly the kind of attack her people planned. "This is brilliant," Paul said, looking at her notes with amazement. "How did you think of this approach?" "Sometimes an outside perspective helps," she said quietly. That evening, ALIN received a final warning from Commander Vexel. Her lack of recent communications had raised suspicions. Another agent named Nexer was being sent to evaluate her work and assist with the final intelligence gathering. ALIN knew what that meant. Nexer would not be coming to help. He would be coming to watch, and if necessary, to eliminate a compromised agent. Time was running out. For her, for Earth, for any hope of stopping what was coming. Nexer arrived 3 days later. ALIN first spotted him in the coffee shop across from Horizon Technologies. He looked human, just as she did, but she recognized the too perfect posture and the calculating gaze. His cover identity was Nathan Cross, a corporate consultant. By the end of the week, Nexer had secured a visitor pass to Horizon. ALIN watched nervously as he charmed his way through the company, gathering information while keeping a close eye on her. "Your new consultant seems interested in you," Paul said one afternoon as they worked on the SHIELD project. ALIN glanced up to see Nexer watching them from across the room. "He's not what he seems," she said quietly. Paul raised his eyebrows. Corporate spy. If only it were that simple, ALIN thought. That evening, Nexer followed her home. He waited until she entered her apartment before making his move. The knock on her door was soft but insistent. ALIN opened it cautiously. "Nathan, what brings you here?" He stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk, Officer Giral." As soon as the door closed, his friendly manner vanished. "Commander Vexel is most displeased with your recent performance." "I've been sending reports," ALIN said defensively. "Useless reports, vague observations, nothing actionable." Nexer paced her small living room. "And now I find you working closely with a human on defensive technology. Curious timing, wouldn't you say?" "I'm gaining his trust to learn more about their capabilities," ALIN lied. Nexer smiled coldly. "Then you won't mind sharing what you've learned. In detail." For the next hour, he questioned her aggressively about every aspect of her mission. ALIN answered carefully, giving enough truth to sound convincing while hiding her recent activities. "Your attachment to these creatures is concerning," Nexer said finally. "Perhaps your cover has become too convincing. You've forgotten who you really are." "I know exactly who I am," ALIN said, her voice hardening. "Do you?" Nexer moved closer. "Then prove it. The fleet requires final targeting data for this region. You will provide it by tomorrow. And if I need more time." "You don't have it." His hand moved to his pocket, revealing the outline of an Araxian weapon. "Either you complete your mission, or I complete mine. My orders include contingencies for compromised agents." After he left, ALIN paced her apartment frantically. She had to warn Paul, warn Earth somehow. But who would believe her? She was still deliberating when her phone rang. It was Lisa. "Hey, just checking if we're still on for dinner tonight. I made reservations at that Italian place you liked." ALIN had completely forgotten their plans. "I'm not feeling well. Can we reschedule?" "You sound terrible," Lisa said with concern. "I'm bringing soup. No arguments." Before ALIN could protest, Lisa had hung up. 30 minutes later, Lisa arrived with soup and bread. ALIN let her in reluctantly, glancing nervously at the street below for signs of Nexer. As Lisa bustled around the kitchen, ALIN considered telling her everything. But how could she explain? Where would she even begin? "Alice, what's wrong?" Lisa asked, noticing ALIN's distress. "And don't say nothing. I know you better than that." The simple kindness in her friend's voice broke something inside ALIN. "I'm not who you think I am," she whispered. Lisa set down the soup. "What do you mean?" Before ALIN could answer, the door burst open. Nexer stood there, weapon now clearly visible in his hand. "I suspected you might try something foolish," he said to ALIN, then noticed Lisa. "How unfortunate." "A witness." Everything happened at once. Nexer raised his weapon. ALIN lunged at him. They crashed into the coffee table, fighting for control of the gun. During the struggle, ALIN felt a searing pain as the weapon discharged against her arm. The injury disrupted her body's camouflage system. In front of Lisa's horrified eyes, patches of ALIN's skin reverted to their natural teal color, her fingers momentarily elongating to their true Araxian form. "What are you?" Lisa gasped. With a final desperate effort, ALIN slammed Nexer's head against the floor, knocking him unconscious. Then she turned to face Lisa, unable to hide the truth any longer. "I'm not human," she said simply, "and Earth is in danger." Lisa backed away, her eyes wide with fear. "You're an alien." ALIN nodded, watching as more patches of her skin flickered between human pink and Araxian teal. The injury had damaged her disguise technology beyond quick repair. "Are you going to hurt me?" Lisa asked, her voice shaking. "No," ALIN said firmly. "I would never hurt you. You're my friend." Lisa looked at the unconscious Nexer on the floor. "And him?" "He's like me, but not on your side." ALIN touched her injured arm, wincing. "We need to tie him up before he wakes." To ALIN's surprise, Lisa moved to help. Together, they bound Nexer with electrical cords and locked him in the bathroom. ALIN explained everything while Lisa cleaned and bandaged her wound. "So your real name is ALIN GIRAL, and you were sent to spy on us?" Lisa asked, still processing. "Yes, my people, the Araxians, see humans as a threat, and now they're planning to attack Earth." ALIN nodded grimly. "In less than 50 days. Lisa sat quietly for a moment. ALIN expected anger, accusations, or more fear. Instead, Lisa simply asked, "What can we do to stop it?" The simple "we" made ALIN's throat tighten with emotion. "We need to tell Paul," ALIN said finally. "His shield technology might be Earth's best defense, but it needs to be completed faster than he thinks possible." They called Paul, asking him to come over immediately. When he arrived 20 minutes later, His expression changed from concern to shock as he saw ALIN's partially transformed appearance. "What happened to you?" he gasped. For the second time that night, ALIN explained everything. Her mission, the Araxian fleet, the planned attack. Paul listened in stunned silence. When she finished, he paced the room, running his hands through his hair. I don't even have words." "I understand if you hate me," ALIN said quietly. "I lied to you from the beginning." Paul stopped pacing and looked at her. "Did you lie about helping with the shield design?" "No, that was real. And your friendship with us?" "That's more real than anything in my life has ever been." Paul exchanged a look with Lisa, then nodded slowly. "So we have 50 days to prepare Earth for an alien invasion, and our best hope is shield technology that isn't ready. With my knowledge of Araxian weapons and your design skills, we can accelerate the timeline," ALIN said. "But we need help." "Who would believe us?" Lisa asked. "We need proof," Paul said, glancing at the bathroom door where Nexer was held. "And we need to contact people who can actually do something with this information." ALIN went to her bedroom and returned with a small device. "This contains all the data I've gathered on the Araxian fleet, plus the files I found about the previous contact 15 years ago. It should be enough to convince the right people." Paul took the device cautiously. "I have a professor from college who works with the government now, Dr. Harris. She might help us get to the right authorities." They spent the night planning. By morning, they had a course of action. Paul would take the evidence to Dr. Harris. Lisa would help cover their tracks, and ALIN would use Nexer's communication device to feed false information back to the Araxian fleet, buying them more time. But before they separated, ALIN needed to know something. "After all I've done, all the lies, why are you helping me?" Lisa took her hand, not flinching at the alien texture of ALIN's skin. "Because that's what friends do. They help each other, even when things get hard." Paul nodded in agreement. "And because you chose to warn us when you could have completed your mission. You chose us over your own people." ALIN felt tears. Actual tears, another strange human reaction her body had adopted. "I don't know if we can succeed." "Neither do we," Paul said with a small smile. "But we're going to try anyway. That's another thing about humans you should know. We're stubborn that way." As dawn broke over Portland, the three unlikely allies set their plan in motion. The fate of Earth now depended on what they did next. The next 45 days passed in a blur of activity. Dr. Harris had connections that led to meetings with military officials. At first, they were skeptical, but ALIN's alien biology and the evidence she provided convinced them. A secret command center was established. Scientists and engineers worked day and night on Paul's shield technology, enhanced by ALIN's knowledge of Araxian weapons. Military forces around the world were quietly put on alert. Using Nexer's higher-level access, ALIN sent false reports to the Araxian fleet. She described Earth's defenses as much weaker than they were, while suggesting certain approach vectors that would funnel the attack ships into areas where the new shield systems would be strongest. 5 days before the expected attack, ALIN sat with Paul and Lisa on the roof of their apartment building. The night was clear, the stars bright overhead. Somewhere up there, the Araxian warships were approaching. "Will it be enough?" Lisa asked quietly. ALIN looked at the stars, trying to imagine the fleet's position. "I don't know. The shields work in tests, but against the full Araxian arsenal." Paul squeezed her hand gently. Over the weeks of working together, their relationship had deepened. Neither spoke about it directly, but the feelings between them were clear. "Whatever happens," he said, "you've given us a fighting chance." On the day of the attack, ALIN stood in the command center alongside Earth's military leaders. Her disguise technology had been repaired, but she chose to show her true Araxian form. The people who mattered knew who she really was. "First wave approaching Earth's orbit," announced a technician. On the large screen, tiny dots appeared, moving toward Earth. The Araxian fleet had arrived. "All shield stations report ready," said another voice. ALIN stepped forward. "May I?" she asked, gesturing to the communication system. The general nodded. ALIN took a deep breath and activated the system. "This is Officer ALIN GIRAL of the Araxian Special Intelligence Division," she said in her native language. "Commander Vexel, I know you can hear me." There was a long pause before a response came through. "Traitor," Vexel's voice hissed. "You betray your own kind for these primitives." "I'm preventing a mistake," ALIN replied. "Humans aren't the threat you believe them to be. I've lived among them. They're creative, compassionate, and worthy of alliance, not destruction." "Your sentiment is wasted," Vexel said coldly. "The attack proceeds as planned. You will watch your new friends die." The screen showed the Araxian ships moving into attack formation. ALIN looked at Paul, who stood at a control panel nearby. He nodded, his expression determined. "Last warning, Commander," ALIN said. "Turn back or face consequences." The only response was the first volley of Araxian weapons fire. The command center shook as energy blasts hit Earth's atmosphere. On the screens, the shield system activated, creating a glowing blue network around the planet. The Araxian weapons hit the shields and dispersed. "Shields holding at 92%, reported a technician. For the next 2 hours, the Araxian fleet hammered Earth with everything they had. But the shields, designed specifically to counter their weapons, held firm. Earth's military forces launched their own counterattack, targeting the ships exactly as ALIN had advised. Finally, the remaining Araxian ships began to retreat. "They're pulling back," the general said, surprise in his voice. ALIN stepped to the communication system one last time. "This is ALIN GIRAL broadcasting on all Araxian frequencies. The High Command lied to you. Humans are not the aggressors we were told. I'm sending proof to every ship in the fleet, files about our first contact, and the truth of who fired first. Earth seeks peace, not war. I ask all Araxians to question what you've been told." In the days that followed, several Araxian ships returned, not to attack, but to talk. Young officers who had seen ALIN's evidence and wanted to learn the truth. The beginnings of a real dialogue between species. 6 months later, ALIN stood with Paul and Lisa watching the first official Araxian delegation arrive for peace talks. The world had changed forever, and so had she. "Do you miss your home?" Lisa asked. ALIN looked at her friends, then at the blue sky of Earth. "No," she said with a smile. "I found a better one here."